Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more news. Today I'll be talking about a famous TV show from the 90s sitcom Family Matters is approved for a reboot and re-airing in September of this year on Hulu. Now, I watched the special talking about the Matters reboot and everything that they've went through in the past, just giving people an update on their lives. And it's been 28 years surprisingly, since the last show aired back in 1997, which is kind of, I don't know, I feel kind of old because I was around 10 when that show, wrapped up. And, now being, in my late 30s, I still remember watching this show when it aired on the TGIF Fridays on ABCs. So there's a lot of acronyms. But, Family Matters was a part of this Friday night cast or lineup. They had Boy Meets World, they had Full House, Step by Step, and then they had other shows as well. But that was a combination of throughout the years, the 10 years that they had this available, the shows that were in rotation. And it was a very good Friday night when you could watch Family Matters and you can watch Full House and Step by Step and those plethora of shows. That was just great TV back then. There's no TV lineups like that really nowadays. Shows are just scattered all over the place, and there's a lot of different Netflix shows and Hulu shows and things like that. So it made sense for the show to re-air on Hulu opposed to going back on ABC or something like that, because more people probably have subscriptions to, Hulu and Netflix than they do, regular cable nowadays. It's rare to see people, even if people do have cable, it's probably like YouTube TV, which is another app, so to speak. So it made sense for them to come back on Hulu, but a lot of things changed since that 1997 date that they wrapped up that show. Uh, the internet has become a major thing, as I talked about before. TV has declined. TV is pretty much almost obsolete in most respects. Family shows are not popularized anymore, or for their sakes, families either. Uh, you know, just a lot of things changed. And the characters, the most important thing is the characters on the show are not even seen the same. Because with the advent of internet, we know way more about these characters than we did back then. Back when the show originally aired back in, 90s, in the 90s, these characters were seen as wholesome family guys. They didn't have that bad reputation. But now a lot of the characters face some kind of media scrutiny or have been humanized in some way since the last show aired back in 97. So a lot of those characters we don't see the same anymore. And I'll get into Jaleel White's character in a little bit. But the question about this discussion is, what can us as the viewers expect from this show? And I have a simple answer for that. I don't expect much, because as watching this show as a fan in the 90s, you're not going to get the same type of show. Jaleel White's character, Steve Urkel, you're not going to get him anymore. He's just too old to do it. It's not believable. It wouldn't make sense if we did see it. I mean, I guess he can make a guest appearance or something, but for the most part, you're going to see that Stephen Urkel character, for the most part. And from the promos of the show, it looks like it's going to be Stefan Urkel's character, even though his name will still be Steve Urkel, but you'll get the smoother character. And so much time has passed since this last reboot that I think most of the fan base either matured or just probably not, watching TV anymore. It's more podcasts now. It's more, stories, more news type things that people are watching now. So that fan base is not going to be there. Now they might go back for the nostalgia, but as far as having a strong fan base, you're not going to have that fan base that you had with Family Matters back in the 90s. That fan base has moved on. Now, if you get the younger kids, which I don't think they'll probably be able to, because it's not like they have a streamer on the show. That probably would have helped them getting like a Kai Cenat or somebody on the show to help the show get more fans, but they didn't. It appeared that they did that. So a lot of their fan base will be older people that watched the show in the 90s, around my age, or maybe even a little bit younger. uh, that's the fan base that you will attract. Now they have 10 episodes already approved, and the first season is going to be 10 episodes, pretty standard for most TV shows right now nowadays. But um, we haven't seen a good formula for these reboots. I know the Roseanne reboot didn't make it because Roseanne said some racially discriminatory things, but I don't think that show had lasted anyway. I know Frasier has a reboot. I'm not sure how that's doing, but a lot of these reboots are just seen as people, just lazy writing and lazy thinking, as these new, these writers and directors are not coming up with new ideas. They're just trying to reboot everything. Same thing with movies as well. But I think the Fresh Prince of Bel Air show is done well because they haven't brung back the same characters, but they brung back the same. Well, they brung back the same names, but they haven't brung back the same physical actors and actresses. So I think that helps. They've modernized or made the characters younger or around the same age that the show was, opposed to the Steve Urkel show. Well, the Fresh, I'm losing my words. Family Matters has just decided to bring back the same characters, and there's going to be some stale storylines because the storylines were pretty cheesy now that I look at them back in the 90s, but it worked for the 90s. Those storylines wouldn't work today because everything that was frowned upon back then probably wasn't frowned upon now. So it's going to be a lot different. So I'm not going to expect a lot out of this show, but I expect this to only last about 1 or 2 seasons at the most. But for the most part, I think Jaleel White kind of rubbed a lot of people wrong, especially his castmates with the autobiography that he came out with, I think earlier this year or late last year. But that autobiography kind of exposed him a lot of different things, and he was seen as very arrogant and just like a brat about the show because he said he saved the show. And I know a lot of people on the show are going to see that or saw that and look at him differently. And I don't think the chemistry will be there. Back in the 90s, they had the chemistry, but I don't think that chemistry will be there today because of all the things that have transpired since the 90s. Sorry. But wish well for the show. Like I said, I was a big fan of the Family Matters show back in the 90s. So I do wish well on the show and hope the show does well. But I just don't think the chemistry will be there. And I think the fan base will be outdated. And I think the storylines will be a little too cheesy for today's writing. So, but until next time, I'll see you next time.